Welcome back to another icon battle where we surgically break down two icons as they go head to head in combat. We'll start by breaking down their backgrounds, strengths, weaknesses, and everything needed to figure out who would come out on top. These two will come head to head in a physical battle or a mental battle depending on who's facing off. Last episode we took a look at Art the Clown versus Pennywise. Click the screen now to check that out. And this week we're going to be taking a look at two of the biggest dolls in horror, Chucky versus Annabelle. Just a disclaimer that we'll be looking at this as a singular battle of who would win, not who would stay down. A lot of these icons die but don't actually ever die and always come back one way or another. So keep that in mind as we look at this specific showdown. Before we jump in, please be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest icon videos just like this one, and if you like it, please let me know below and who you would like to see face off next. Starting off with background and appearance, we have Chucky, which is perhaps one of the most infamous and iconic dolls in all of cinema, striking fear into the hearts of both children and adults. He comes in the form of a good guy doll. He has red fuzzy hair, overalls, and big disarming eyes in his small doll stature. Throughout the series, as he gets hurt and goes through all child play antics, stitches and scars can be seen all across his face, which show his true menacing form. Chucky's backstory is creepy as it is creative. Behind the appearance of this seemingly typical doll is the soul of a serial killer and criminal by the name of Charles Lee Ray. During a failed robbery, Charles is fatally shot when trying to escape, but instead of dying, he does one last-ditch effort using a voodoo amulet to transfer his soul into the doll, specifically the Good Guy doll brand, which is hilariously iconic. Thus, his body dies and his soul is successfully transferred to the doll's body, and just like that, Chucky is born. It's basically a grown man in the form of a small doll, which is creepy as it is, but making him a killer doll, and we're way past Toy Story. Chucky can speak and has a very crass and sinister sense of humor throughout the series. He's comedic at times when he's in and out of slaughtering people. Moving on, we have Annabelle, a creepy and more classic looking porcelain doll. Just by appearance, she has a more vintage look with the porcelain design, a white and red dress, and large creepy eyes. Just by looks, she's a lot scarier looking, but her backstory is in the same vein as Chucky. One terrible night, a couple's home is invaded by a bunch of devil worshippers as they launch a violent attack against the couple. The cultists attempt to summon a demon, and they smear a bloody rune on the nursery wall and drip blood on the porcelain doll, which results in turning the former object of beauty into a doll for ultimate evil and possession. Besides them, both being dolls, both Chucky and Annabelle are different entities showcasing themselves through dolls of different kinds. Annabelle has a much more convoluted storyline following the cult that invaded the home, involving Malthus, aka the Annabelle demon, which eventually becomes the doll. Moving on, next we have Method of Killing, where we break down any specific weapons or killing methods our icons tend to use, if any. Chucky, for one, is a lot more ground roots and aggressive with his kill style. Keep in mind that even though Chucky is a small doll, he has the strength of a human, so that enables him to fulfill his killing deeds easily. Chucky doesn't have one particular weapon of killing, but he really does love using knives when he can, slitting throats and stabbing his victims. He also sometimes uses childhood toys or accessories that come with the Good Guy doll, like his hammer, causing someone to fall out the window in the first Child's Play movie, or a yo-yo in which he uses to strangle someone. Chucky covers a lot of different kill methods, from suffocation to electrocution to stabs, gunshots, and even a garbage truck. Chucky does not hold back and is just as much of a killing machine as any other icon like Jason or Michael Myers. He's not such a good guy as his doll may suggest. So Annabelle is actually just a walk-in jump scare and doesn't actually do any killing in the movies. She may terrify and strike fear into her victims, but she doesn't ever do any killings. If any, she maybe has one kill technically under her belt. The people trying to summon her or the demon inside her end up doing more of the killing. As terrifying as she is, she really doesn't even put a dent in the carnage that Chucky brings to the table. So for that reason, Annabelle doesn't really have a killing method. But before we call it quits on the battle, Annabelle does actually have some abilities and powers at her disposal, at least the demon inside the doll does, and those are not to be undermined and still allow Annabelle to put up a good fight in this battle. Talking about powers and abilities, like mentioned earlier, Chucky may be the size of a doll, but he can easily take on people of human size, and has the physical strength to do so. And since he was a killer in real life, he knows how to use different weapons, as I outlined earlier. Not only that, but he can use them proficiently, being able to accurately throw items and hit people where it hurts. He is cunning as he is intelligent, and can plan out complex traps and scenarios while getting away scot-free in many cases. But like many of our franchise villains, he is immortal in a weird way. There are around 8 or 9 movies or series of Chucky, so you can imagine he always finds a way to come back to life somehow, even with the help of other people when he's defeated. But like our first battle, we're looking at who would defeat who in this particular combat, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to stay dead. Since he used voodoo powers to become a doll, this is actually at his disposal as well when it comes down to it. In Cult of Chucky, he actually gets the ability to possess multiple Chucky dolls or good guy dolls, and he can also wield telekinesis abilities in some cases. Chucky may not be the tallest or mightiest, but his powers and expertise with weapons, along with his thirst for death, makes him a doll you do not want to mess with. Now, since Annabelle is literally a demon, she has some abilities at her disposal as well. While not as physical as Chucky can be, she can possess her demons, specifically those that are owners of the doll. She can possess them to do things like kill other people or do things all at her will. She also has telekinesis, which may be her most powerful asset against Chucky. She can move and levitate objects and the owner itself. She can throw objects and move things. Not sure if this is specific to the quote-unquote owner of the doll itself, but assuming she can do that, this would be a very important advantage in this battle, so we're going to assume that she's able to use that against Chucky. Her final ability is inducing the owner's fears by creating demons, but in this battle, I don't think that's going to be very relevant. But with every ability and power, there are weaknesses and limitations. Chucky can be very impatient and rather arrogant at times. Chucky's voodoo abilities also only work under specific circumstances and have requirements for them to work. Another limitation is that he's been a doll for so long that Chucky actually became anatomically human, which means that he can bleed and feel pain even if he is immortal. Because of this, damage will stall and slow him down. As mentioned, there are several things that are required for him to be at full power. For example, he does have a possession ability, but he needs full control of the person in order to do that. And for the doll army ability, he can only possess other good guy dolls. He can't just grab any kind of doll that he wants. We won't see a bunch of Cabbage Patch Kids coming at you. So there's some limitations there. While he's pretty powerful in his own right, there are quite a bit of ways to get the best of him, especially if you know how to overpower a doll-sized entity like Chucky. But luckily for him, he's facing a fellow doll, so let's get back to Annabelle. Annabelle's weaknesses derive from your typical demonic entities like crosses, holy relics, exorcisms, and other practices in that field that can render Annabelle useless and can defeat her, or more so the demon inside her. Another weakness of hers would be her lack of abilities as it stands. Yes, she has telekinesis and manipulation powers, but the extent of these are very unknown, and physically speaking, she can be beat in multiple ways that don't really require you to even get near her. Annabelle may be a lot stronger than she appears, but for now, those are her limitations and weaknesses. So there you have it, a breakdown of Chucky and Annabelle's limitations, power, strengths, and background. Now it's time for these two dolls to go head to head. In this portion of the video, I will lay out a hypothetical fight using all this information and what we know about them. As always, these fights could go a million different ways, so please let me know how you think the battle would go. So, I think the battleground for these two would be a classic suburban home, because in a perfect world, or should I say imperfect, both these dolls would end up in the same house, although I would feel extremely bad for the unlucky owners of both of these. In the quiet hours of the night, when the family is asleep or disposed of, these two would awaken. Chucky would give Annabelle a few choice words with his typical sadistic sense of humor, probably insulting her appearance. Annabelle, on the other hand, would just turn her head and stare at him creepily with her beady eyes. Chucky would run downstairs and grab the old kitchen knife for good measure. and Annabelle would teleport down there. She'd shut the drawer before he could grab the knife, and he would just pounce on her with anger. While she's being stabbed, Annabelle would throw something at Chucky, rendering him useless for a few seconds. Annabelle would probably try to get into Chucky's head, but I think she would fail in that, considering the soul behind Chucky. Chucky would fight back once more, pinning Annabelle down and stabbing her a bunch of times, or hitting her with a hammer or a mallet. This would break the exterior of Annabelle, but unfortunately for Chucky, you can't really just physically kill Annabelle. He would have to spiritually kill her. Annabelle would do some damage with her telekinetic powers, but even she couldn't get very far. But hear me out on this one. In spiritual or demonic power, since we're dealing with voodoo with Chucky and demonic possession with Annabelle, if there's a different realm these two would combat, things may look a little different. Let's say Charles Lee, the soul behind Chucky, was able to face with the demon. There would be more of a fight, but being stripped down to the soul of a human versus the soul of a demon may not bode very well. At the end of the day, Chucky would physically hurt the doll and could probably decimate the physical doll itself, so in that sense, Chucky would technically win the fight, but the demonic entity inside would not be killed, and vice versa. There's also a world where Chucky uses his brains and cunning to somehow exorcise the demon inside of the doll and win that way, but this would require preparation, and in these battles we assume that there's no prep time involved. With all that being said and done, we'd have a dead doll. Honestly, this one's very close for several reasons, and it really just comes down to how much control, or rather how much damage Annabelle can do for someone that's not her owner. This whole battle is over and Chucky immediately wins if Annabelle can't do that to other people that aren't her owner. But assuming that she can just use her powers at her will, I do think that Annabelle actually may have a slight advantage since she has actual abilities versus just voodoo powers that may work. I know it's ironic since she doesn't even come close to the kill count of Chucky, but I feel like if the movies she's in were more of slasher focused, she would be a force to be reckoned with. With all that being said, I do like Chucky a lot more as a character. He's charismatic and funny, and has a lot more character than the bland porcelain doll from the Conjuring world. But I think at the end of the day, Annabelle would win this battle. Well, there you have it, the doll fight you've been waiting for. Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know below. I'd love to hear who you think would have won, and please let me know who should battle next.